Good morning. Thank you for joining us today for our monthly webinar series. We are very excited to have a special guest with us that most of you are very familiar with. His name is Billy Peppers, and he is now the city manager with the City of Canton. Billy has always been a great resource for us, especially when he was at the Office of Downtown Development in regards to special tax districts. I feel that special tax districts are one of those underutilized resources that we have in our toolbox as downtown development professionals. And if we really want economic developers and our city professionals and elected officials to take us more seriously, then understanding the language, how these special tax districts work, and the role that they can play in downtown development, it's very key for us to be, to understand this so that we can move forward successfully. So I've asked Billy to give us this presentation, help us get a better understanding, a better foundation for what these special tax districts can do for us and our communities, and break it down for us in an easy, digestible, understandable format. So Billy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Good morning to everybody. We're going to talk about kind of the basics on special tax districts here in Georgia, and the ones that I see most often used throughout the state. Part of the thing about special tax districts is trying to figure out what your goal is as a community, because depending on what your goals are, the tax district that you use may differ. What I have seen across the state is that most special tax districts are used to create an opportunity for the local government to either provide supplemental services to an area, or for the local government to help incentivize a project. Some of the things that you can do is really asking yourself a few questions. Are you trying to encourage development? Is that one of your goals, or is your goal to make things more beautiful and clean in your community? Do you need certain support services in your downtown area that you aren't currently delivering with your existing city services? Do you need a special tax district to create alternative funding streams for projects that you're trying to get completed through your organization or through the city? Do you have mitigating issue? Do you need to mitigate existing issues on sites? Maybe you've got an old gas station site and it's got some underground storage, or maybe you've got a site that's close to the railroad, or a site that's in a floodplain, and you need to build up the site. Or are you just trying to make an area generally competitive with other areas in the community? Special tax districts can really help in just about any of these situations. Cleanliness, safety. And when I talk about safety, I mean both the idea of creating an area that looks safe. Maybe it's street lighting, maybe it's better sidewalks, better pedestrian access, or maybe it's the extreme of having more bicycle cops and things like that enforcing and protecting an area. Visibility and what you can do to make an area look more attractive and more approachable from a development standpoint. Accessibility, making an area easier to get to, easier to park in, easier for businesses to succeed in. You can use special tax districts to improve the marketability of an area, and the way that people notice you and the way that you advertise yourself. Special tax districts can be great at developing teamwork between both the public sector and the private sector. It also can be used for creating great partnerships on development activities. Most importantly, special tax districts can be a benefit on leveraging capacity for projects. What I see a lot of is that communities across the state have these great dreams of things that they would like to see done, but they can't figure out the vehicle to help pay for that, or they can't figure out a way to make that part of a long-term plan. And a special tax district can really be beneficial in helping make that possible. Great development. This is Swanee, for instance. Great development in communities isn't accidental. It takes the local government and the private sector working together to make the development possible. And sometimes it requires that the public sector invest more in itself or levels the playing field for the private sector. You know, I used to have a board member when I was in Woodstock that used to tell me that downtown is the reason why downtown struggle across the state is it's the hardest place to do redevelopment because property owners own small tracts of land. They may not own anything outside of the walls of their building. You've got a lot of property owners working together. You've got anything from state highways to railroads to rivers and streams. You've got so many things that are going on, and it's very difficult to get projects done because there's just so many players. So if a community wants to improve itself, it may need to look at a special tax district to help participate in that. These are the special tax districts that we'll cover today. The first is the most simple tax district in the state of Georgia, and it's simply called a special tax district, or what I would also consider a special purpose tax district. We'll also talk about business improvement districts, or BIDs, community improvement districts, or CIDs, and tax allocation districts, or TADs. So let's get started on special tax districts. The state of Georgia has a provision in state law found in Article 9, Section 2, Paragraph 6 of the state constitution that provides that any local government may create a special tax district for the purpose of providing supplemental local government services. This applies to both cities and counties and can additionally be applied to consolidated city-county governments. The governing board of the local government, whether it's the city council or city commission or the county commission, has to create the district, so they basically have to draw out the district on a map, state the supplemental services that are going to be provided in that district, and establish a millage rate necessary to provide the services in that district. Mill rate of the special tax district is collected along with the property taxes in that community, and those funds are applied to providing those supplemental services. The rate on a special tax district cannot exceed 3 mills. There are no requirements for citizen support of the district, though like most local tax adoptions, there would be a requirement for public input during a governing body meeting. When I think about special tax districts, probably the most common approach to special tax districts in Georgia is what you would see counties doing a lot of, which is a special tax district for fire services. So you have residents who live in maybe in an unincorporated area, not in a city, and the county adds a special tax district for fire services where they charge additional millage rate for those citizens that live in an unincorporated area to help provide fire services. The special tax district really has a lot of different things that it can do for a community, though. When you think about a downtown area, specifically, there are some local government services that are more likely to be used and used more often in a downtown than maybe in other parts of the community. For instance, cleanliness. Maybe having the opportunity to put a special tax district in place to improve the cleanliness of sidewalks downtown. Maybe you've got a community where you provide city sanitation services and you do that service once a week. But in the downtown area, you need to pick up garbage more frequently. So you could create a special tax district and charge additional fees within that downtown area to cover additional sanitary services. Perhaps in the downtown area, you want to improve the aesthetics. You want to have a specific street light, for instance, and that street light's more expensive than what you would have in other parts of the city. You can create a special tax district and allow the property owners to help pay for those street lights. Maybe you need extra security downtown. Maybe you need public safety in the downtown area, and by having a special tax district, you can provide supplemental officers for downtown. A lot of communities could take advantage of this in their older neighborhoods as well. When you think about neighborhoods in general, a lot of our newer neighborhoods have homeowners associations, and when they're developed, they're planned with sidewalks and street lights and things like that. Our older neighborhoods that are adjacent to downtown don't always have those same facilities. They don't always have the sidewalks or the street lights, but maybe the neighbors in that area would like to have the ability to have sidewalks that help them get to downtown. Instead of the city carving out money in the general fund, they could create a special tax district in that residential area and provide an opportunity to put in that infrastructure and basically allow the homeowners in that area to help subsidize the cost for that supplemental service. The thing about a special tax district, like I mentioned, it only has to be approved by the city council or commission or the county commission, depending on which jurisdiction is putting it in place. They don't have to do any outreach necessarily to the public. Now, I will tell you, it's the easiest to put in place because it's guaranteed in the state constitution for cities and counties to use. So you don't have to have any local acts by the legislature. You don't have to have any voter referendums to be able to take advantage of the special tax district. But because it is a taxing area, you definitely would want to make sure that there is an opportunity for some type of public input, because it's not the easiest thing in the world for elected officials to raise taxes in an area without giving reasoning. And these tax districts can be set up with a sunset date. Perhaps you know the specific things that you would like to do downtown, and you could convince your council to levy an additional mill and taxes on the properties in downtown to participate. The special tax district applies to both commercial and residential property. So you could make a district as large or as small as you needed to. Perhaps you've got a section of your downtown or a side street in your downtown that has some infrastructure issues, or doesn't have the visibility necessarily that some of the other areas have. A special tax district could always be used to help with those issues as well. The next one that we're going to talk about is the Business Improvement District, or a BID. And I would just mention that business improvement districts are a little bit confusing, because when you think of the name Business Improvement District, you think that it is basically a tool for commercial properties. However, the Business Improvement District also applies to residential properties. BIDs are provided for in state code in section 3643.1. It is a special taxing district that is approved by a simple majority of the taxpayers within that district, or a simple majority of taxpayers in the district by total property value. The requirements for creating a business improvement district include a district plan for supplemental services that includes a simple district map. You would need to be able to draw out the district by parcel line. Property owners within that district must sign a petition and meet the 50% plus one method, either by number of taxpayers or by total property value. The petition should include the total cost of the proposed services, a start date for the business improvement district, and an end date. BIDs can be created for 5 or 10 years. The petition must be verified by the city, noticed by the city, and approved during a public meeting. The city collects the assessment, which can be levied on both commercial and residential properties, as well as added surcharges to business licenses. The Business Improvement District generally has a board appointed of property owners that create the budget and expend the funds, and typically the funds are used for more soft cost related projects. In the case of a business improvement district, I liken it to a homeowners association for both residential and commercial property. Basically, the state of Georgia allows property owners to get together and decide that they want to improve something within their area, and it gives the method by which they can do that, which is basically, as I mentioned, a petition by those property owners, a sign saying what projects they're going to undertake, the length of time that it's going to take to get those projects done, and their estimated cost. The great thing about a business improvement district is that it allows funds to be spent on private projects. We constantly get questions around the state about facade grants and whether or not the funds that are used for those are local funds, government funds, and whether or not that's gratuity. In the case of a business improvement district, you're using funds that are generated by private property owners, that they're self-imposing fees on themselves, and they can vote to use those funds to improve their own properties. So there's no gratuities issues as it relates to a business improvement district. Likewise, the private property owners can agree to give their money to the local government or to a local government entity to work on projects that could include things like beautification or streetscapes. When you think about this example, I've got pictures on here of Rome. Rome has had a successful business improvement district for a number of years now, and they use some of their funds on facade grants, and they also use some of their funds on special events. And it's a great opportunity for them to do activities that improve the properties, but also bring people into the community. So if you think about a downtown business improvement district, what you can consider in that is that you could charge a fee or a rate on the residential properties within that district, whether it be single-family homes or townhomes or even apartments. You could charge a fee as it relates to the commercial properties within that district. And then additionally, you can add a surcharge to the business licenses within that district. So technically, you could be earning funds from businesses that rent, the property owners, and the residents if you had a mixed-use building. A business improvement district is a great tool for communities that have a number of property owners that see the value of investing in themselves. It can be a great opportunity to leverage a match on a project. Perhaps the city has received some funds for a streetscape, and maybe the business improvement district would like to see that streetscape go a little bit further or be a little bit more detailed than some of the things that's done as the project. So it's a great opportunity to supplement the generic streetscape with additional things within the district. Also, as it relates to a business improvement district, I think it's important to note that, if you have property owners who are not contributing within the district, they're not taking care of their properties, and maybe they're bringing the property values down of neighboring properties. Because the business improvement district only requires a simple majority of property owners to participate, if you've got an active group of property owners and maybe some absentee property owners, you can levy the rate against those absentee property owners even if they don't agree with the business improvement district, as long as there's a majority. So when you lay out a district, it's very important for you to look at the area and look at that calculation. But it's also important that you know going in that you're going to have the support from at least a majority of those property owners for doing projects. So it really is a great tool that can be used in downtowns. The next one we're going to talk about is community improvement districts. Community improvement districts in Georgia are founded pursuant to Article 9, Section 7 of the Georgia Constitution. The constitutional amendment allowing for CIDs was approved by voters in 1984. SIDs are provided for through local acts of the General Assembly and may be used in communities after the approval of a simple majority of property owners in the district and property owners representing not less than 75% of the property value within the district. The city and the county must have a local act approved by the city or the county must have a local act approved by the General Assembly enabling the use of a SID within their boundaries. A SID serving both a city and a county, so basically a SID that's going outside of the municipal boundaries into the unincorporated area, requires that there be an act, a local act for both the city and the county in place. Once the act is in place, a petition must be signed by the majority of property owners in the district set to be created, and those signatures must encompass at least 75% of the ownership of property value in that district. A community improvement district plan is developed that outlines projects to be done and the formula for assessing additional property taxes. Work that is to be done is limited by law to the following areas. 1, street and road construction and maintenance, including curbs, sidewalks, street lights, and devices to control the flow of traffic on streets and roads. 2, parks and recreational areas and facilities. 3, stormwater and sewage collection and disposal systems. 4, development, storage, treatment, purification, and distribution of water. 5. Public transportation. 6. Terminal and dock facilities and parking facilities. 7. Such other services and facilities as may be provided by general law. The city, the county, or a development authority may administer the community improvement district, or a separate board of property owners can be established. Taxes collected by the local government and can only be used for public projects. They can also only assess the additional taxes within the community improvement district on real commercial property. So as a review on this, a community improvement district, part of the reason why you have to have a local act by the General Assembly to be able to use a community improvement district is that the projects that are related to the community improvement district are going to be publicly owned. The projects cannot be done on private property. They cannot, you do have a true gratuities issue as it relates to community improvement districts. The property owners within a community improvement district have to meet the majority of parcels and also have to include the larger, more expensive property values within the area. So you have to have 50% plus one of property owners by number and 75% by property owners by property value. So in the earlier case of a business improvement district where you may have a substantial property owner who's not investing back into their property and you're lumping them into a district to take advantage of them, you can't do that in a community improvement district. You have to have the opportunity to put their name on the petition, get it down. The public projects, the pictures that I've shown here, this is Buford Highway. For those of you that are familiar with the Atlanta area, this is in the city of Brookhaven now. Buford Highway has long had issues with pedestrian fatalities. There's a lot of non-English speaking residents that live in this area, and they created a community improvement district. You see the picture below, the rendering with the street trees and improved sidewalks. They did that so that it would give them an opportunity to encourage better development along the road, but also make it safer for pedestrians and also make it slower for vehicles. Of course, you know, as anytime you have divided medians and street trees and you narrow the lanes, it gives an opportunity for cars to slow down. And that's what they've done in this rendering on Buford Highway. Community improvement districts are very effective as it relates to long-term projects. Perhaps the best examples of community improvement districts across the state are in really the metropolitan area. If you drive through Atlanta and you notice really great interchanges along the interstate, it's not because the Department of Transportation is spending the money there. It's because property owners within that area are investing in infrastructural improvements. So you see a lot of community improvement districts that are related to interchanges and interstates. The Cumberland Improvement District there at the intersection of 285 and 75 in Cobb County has been instrumental in leveraging federal funds for transportation projects by having funds pledged by property owners through their community improvement district as a match. It was a very useful tool by that area to recruit the Atlanta Braves to build their new stadium as part of the project. You'll see community improvement districts used a lot when there's new development related to large-scale commercial. So maybe you've got a major shopping center, or maybe you've got a major road improvement that's going to create commercial areas within your community. And the community improvement district allows for those property owners to help shoulder the cost of things like water and sewer infrastructure, better roads, better access to the interstate, parking facilities, stormwater management within the site, and the like. So community improvement districts are a step up in difficulty as it relates to a bid because you have to have that local act approved ahead of time. I would highly encourage communities that don't already have a local act in place for you as managers, running economic development programs, for you to talk to your city council and just encourage them to ask their legislative delegation to consider approving a local act, so that at least you have this tool in the toolbox, knowing that our legislature only meets a couple months out of the year every year. Having this on the board is a great tool to have just in case major development looks to come into your community. The last one that we're going to talk about is tax allocation districts. And if you're going up the scale, easiest to hardest, a TAD is absolutely the hardest development tool as it relates to special tax districts that are out there. Tax allocation districts are provided under the Redevelopment Powers Law of Georgia, located in State Code 36441. This is the most complex of all the special tax districts and requires the most citizen input and government oversight. The city or county must have the ability to utilize redevelopment powers by placing a referendum on the local ballot for voter consent and having that done by the General Assembly. Voters must consent to the use of the redevelopment powers within the city or county. After consent, the local government can establish a tax allocation district after doing the following. They have to develop a redevelopment plan for the district, draw a contiguous district, assuring that the district does not go over 10% of the total tax digest for the local government. They have to develop a tax study to show the potential growth in the tax rate in the district and develop a funding structure. The funding structure for a tax allocation district can include city tax funds, county tax funds, and even school district tax funds related to future tax revenues over and above the current baseline established in the district. Any pledge of funds requires an intergovernmental agreement, public hearings from all the parties involved, and resolutions of support. Future allocation of taxes may be used to sell revenue bonds, which must be validated by your local superior court, and these are generally viewed on the market as what I consider to be junk bonds, meaning that they are backed by potential revenues and not guaranteed revenues. The big thing about a tax allocation district, and I've got pictures here, the upper picture in black and white is a picture of Atlantic Station when it was the rail yard coming into Atlanta. Atlantic Station is probably the most famous tax allocation district in the state of Georgia. Basically, there were many developers that the city of Atlanta had courted for redevelopment of the site, but developers in general would not do development in the area because of the brownfield that existed. If you think about the rail yard being there, there were certain environmental factors. The site was below the interstate. There was a lot of infrastructural improvements that would need to be done related to water and sewer and the like. And so basically the city of Atlanta utilized a tax allocation district to improve the area. In this case, as you look at the picture of the rail yard, the city, the county, and the school board would be receiving, a basic level of tax funds from the site. So if you have a property that's not being utilized in a good manner, maybe it's underutilized, you might see, maybe $30,000 or $40,000 in local property tax coming off of the site. When the site is improved, it might bring in $1 million in property tax. And the difference between that $30,000 or $40,000 and the million is what's called the increment. And that increment in a tax allocation district can be used to help pay for projects in the site. So in the case of Atlantic Station, by creating a tax allocation district on the site, they estimated what the redevelopment would bring in revenues on an annual basis in taxes, and that estimate, the increase in the increment through that estimate, they were able to pledge towards cleaning up the site and building the underground parking facility that basically created a tabletop for the developers to build their new development. This is kind of a large example of a TAD. Smaller examples of tax allocation districts do not always require bonds to be issued. A community that has the use of redevelopment powers and has had that approved by their by their voters can decide not to partner with the county and decide not to partner with the school board, but only pledge their local increment. And you may think, well, what would that do? Well, if you had 5, 6, 7 acres that are adjacent to your downtown area that are not bringing in good property value, and you had a developer that was interested in working on the site, but maybe they needed the city to support them with infrastructure, you could pledge your increment in taxes over a period of years back towards the project on that site. And so instead of the city coming out of money up front for roads and sewer and water, basically you pledge back to the developer that if they'll do it, you'll help pay for it through the increment that they create. So a TAD can be very complex, or it can be a simple incentive that a community can put in place. The big thing to ask when you're thinking about special tax districts is, what is the overall plan? Anything that you do related to a special tax district should be part of your master plan for your community, and it should take some community visioning. If your community needs infrastructure improvements, then maybe a community improvement district is the way to go. If your community needs to improve the look or the feel of a downtown, then maybe a business improvement district is the way to go. If the city's just not able to provide the services that the downtown businesses and property owners are needing, then maybe a special tax district is the way to go. Or if you've got a developer that's willing to partner with you on the project, then maybe a TAD is the way to go. You really need to understand what your role is as it relates with the development. If you need to take the lead on a development, a special tax district can be a great way for you to take charge of the situation and put the public money first. Perhaps there's already development that's going on and you need to find a way to assist, and that's where a special tax district can provide that public leverage to make the private funds go further. And sometimes you've got a developer that just wants you to get out of the way so that they can get their project done. The great thing about these special tax districts is they can be layered. You could have all 4 of these tax districts working simultaneously within an area. We currently don't have any examples of that around the state of Georgia, but if you had a really savvy developer, there's a great opportunity for taking advantage of those, as well as other things like tax credits to make projects possible. I'm happy now to answer any questions that you might have on the tax districts, and I will make sure that Jessica has a copy of this presentation that she can send out as well. There's my contact information, my email if you need to ask me a question. So I'm looking at the questions. Can a special tax district be used for improved landscaping? Absolutely. Probably if I were going to do improved landscaping, beautification projects, maybe even signage, I would look at a special tax district or a business improvement district is the best way to do that. The question you would need to ask yourself is whether or not you have the support of the property owners. If the property owners are supportive of getting it done, then maybe a bid's the way to go so that you put the ball in their court to help lead the process. If you think that you need the improvements and your council thinks the improvements need to be in place, but the property owners aren't necessarily going to volunteer to do it, then a special tax district would be an option for getting it done. The next question, do the communities that offer incentives for recruiting businesses, such as water and sewer hookups, are they able to do so because they have a bid? No. Any service that a city offers, they can use as an incentive. As long as you are applying it across the board. When you get into the situation, maybe your city's a full-service city and you offer, say, water, sewer, sanitation, maybe gas or maybe electric services. Because you offer services, you can always use that as a way to incentivize new business starts. So maybe you get rid of a tap fee, or maybe you eliminate a sign-up fee for new services. As long as you're willing to apply that across the board, the easiest way to do that, I think, is to draw a special area. And basically, you say within the downtown area, we're going to reduce our building permit fees, we're going to reduce our water tap fees, we're going to reduce our reduce our fees as it relates to development or the like. As long as you are willing to apply that reduction across the board to any project that opens up within that area, then I think you're okay. The thing to note is that you have the role of making sure your elected officials understand those things that you can give away to incentivize the development taking place. So I would highly encourage you to sit down with maybe you've had a restaurant that's opened up in the last 6 months or a year. Find out from them exactly what the cost of opening their business was. It's hard to figure out what the incentives need to be unless you understand what the true cost of doing business within the city is. So if you have that information, then you can sit down with the mayor and council and have a good conversation about what you can do to recruit things within the downtown area. I don't seem to have any other questions, but like I said, they are recording the webinar, and also there's a copy of Jessica will have a copy of the presentation. And in the presentation, I've included notes under each of the special tax districts where they can be found in state law or in the Constitution. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Another great asset for special tax districts is Dan McCrae. He has his own website, danmccrae.com, and he has what he calls white pages throughout his site where he does presentations and documents as it relates to these districts. So he's a good resource for you to look at as well. Thank you all very much for your time, and I'll turn it back over to Jessica.
Thank you, Billy. I feel like every time I hear this, I learn a little something that I didn't know before. We appreciate you taking your time to review these special tax districts with us. And you guys will always be able to find our recorded webinars on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/GA Main Street. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.